Aloha, I'm Jade Moon. I'm a columnist, a spokeswoman for renewable energy issues, and a former news anchor. And I'm a survivor of domestic violence. One of the most prevalent myths we all have about domestic violence is that it just doesn't happen in our neighborhoods. It doesn't happen to women of a certain means or a level of education. It doesn't happen to women who are smart or accomplished or confident. But the truth is, domestic violence isn't limited to one certain neighborhood, and it happens in all kinds of families. Domestic violence is everywhere, and it's hiding in plain sight.
We got in an argument, and he put his arms around me and tried to strangle me.
She felt she needed to choose between him and the family, because if she chose the family, she would lose him.
You never quite knew what would set him off, but I saw that he would be very charming with me, but very abrupt with my sister, and it bothered me a lot.
We're talking about an 89-year-old man and an 84-year-old woman. You know, who would have ever imagined that domestic violence would have affected their lives?
I had won the first Great Aloha Run and won the Big Island Marathon and Run to the Sun up Haleakala and a number of races here. Been sponsored by Nike, got my nursing degree, and was pretty popular and pretty successful. I met and fell in love with an elite runner. He told me everything I wanted to hear and more, made me lots of promises, and showed me what a good time we could have together. The good times were good. The good times were when we traveled together, when we went out to dinner, where he would wine and dine me. We would laugh, tell jokes, have stories to tell. Sex was fabulous. We had a lot in common. The first time I think he hit me actually when we were in the car. I was driving, and we got in an argument, and he put his arms around me and tried to strangle me. I thought it was an isolated incident. I thought it was something that I had done, something I had said. I thought it was my fault.
Your fault.
Yeah, he always said it's, had you not done that, I wouldn't have done this. And so I felt that I was totally to blame.
You kind of fell into that. You
Yep.
bought into that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I knew better, but I chose to ignore it. And I actually prayed for strength every day. Strength to get out, because I felt myself weaker and drowning and just letting him control my life. My running shorts were too short. My dresses were too short. My hair was too long. He actually had me cut my hair at one point. Anything to make me, I think, less attractive. If I was on the phone, who was I talking to? What did we talk about? What I was eating? And he would stalk me at work. He would follow me at work. I would find him out on the parking lot, hiding in between the cars to see if I might be talking to a coworker or be with anyone. He would wake me up in the middle of the night and ask me if I'd ever had an affair with so-and-so who was maybe 40 years older than me, and start grilling me about issues that were way in the past, just break me down. I think just feeling like I was really messed up and having to account for everything, including my past, and make it to what he wanted to hear, I felt like I was always walking on eggshells. And there are so many women, I think, that are ashamed and that are hiding. And they're not alone. I've been there, done that, like I said, and then one of the first things they need to do is tell somebody and talk it out.
My daughter had been dating a young man for a couple of years. The first thing we noticed was her personality changing. She would always worry about being judged. We always had to boost her up. She used to be very happy and fun-loving. And now it was like, well, is this a fun thing to do? Isn't this a fun thing to do? She got really serious about everything had to be just so, and it was according to how he felt about it, too. I didn't know she was in fear of him yelling at her. I didn't know that he was so difficult that she liked to spend a lot of time away from where they were living. He was blaming her for many aspects of the relationship, that he would get mad at her for not having friends of her own, but he only would let her do things with his friends. He never let her have any time to go find friends of her own. So it was just one thing after another where it was definitely clear to me that he was controlling her. Oh, I used to sneak in little things like, do you notice that he never lets you have a moment to yourself? When we're walking on the beach, he always has to call you and make you feel guilty that you're on vacation and he's not. And, do you always notice that when he comes, everyone is focused on him? So I used to sort of just sneak these little comments in just to hope maybe a little thing would click. I was really afraid of approaching her and saying, you really need to break up with this guy. He is not a nice person, he's not treating you well, and he's not allowed in the house, or we don't want to see him, or we won't see you if you're with him. Or why are you dating him and this is a really bad decision? I just couldn't do that. And I'm not sure, I just was afraid of losing her if I did that, because by the time it had gotten as far as it had, she was maybe willing to pick her relationship with him over us, and then she really would have been alone. I was raised to believe, and I raised my daughters to believe, that they're strong women, no matter what happens. They're strong and they're worthy of nice young men to date. So I was surprised. She felt that she was difficult as a woman because she did speak out and she was successful in her career. And that was the other thing that happened at the end of the relationship. She realized she wasn't difficult anymore. He was difficult. So that light bulb went off. But it's interesting that a strong woman would stay dependent. Also, in the end, she realized it was fear of being alone. She tells me all the time that she wouldn't know what she would have done without us. That for us creating a safe space for her to go to when the breakup was going on, when he was moving out of the apartment, to make sure that she would be all right through that process was huge.
It was my sister, my middle sister. There are three of us. And she was living away from home at the time. She became involved with a young man who, perhaps at first glance, may have been very nice. We as a family never met him. In retrospect, when she began to share the story with us, which was much later, he was very controlling even prior to her getting married, wanting to isolate her from her family and friends. Our phone calls were brief, and she was always abbreviated in her responses. I'm fine, everything's fine. I thought, something's wrong. Because we're not always fine. I mean, there's nobody that I've known in my life that is. I'm fine. How are you? Fine. Everything's good. And I thought, no, it doesn't feel right. Something is not right. And if I tried to pursue a conversation and take a tack with her, she'd completely shut down. And I thought, I worry about distancing myself from my sister if she thinks that I am trying to get into her business somehow, and I wanted her to know that we were here. So it was almost in shorthand that I began, reassuring her and telling her how much I loved her and that we were here and that we were happy for everything that was going well, and if she needed us for anything that she could call at any time, but she didn't. I look back now and I thought it was as if she was making these cries for help, but they were so soft that I couldn't hear them well. She worked nights and he was with the children, and what happened was so horrific. She found out through a neighbor that her husband had molested their eldest daughter. So we didn't know at the time. She actually went into a shelter, and it was only once she was in a shelter and safe with her daughters that she called home. And we began then to really do our best to surround her with support and love and really create something as stable as we could. And we've talked about it since. We've had a lot of long heart-to-heart conversations. We've cried and looked at ways that maybe we can keep an eye on our friends and other members of our family, our nieces, our daughters, so that we can learn from this experience. And as painful as it has been, it can serve us to help other women.
My auntie was just the sweetest woman you'd ever want to meet. Always cleaning and always trying to feed me, very local style, always wanting to give me more and more food. My auntie Dorothy Hironaga was killed at the age of 84 by her husband. Just to find out that her life was taken by her husband, first of all, was devastating. And then to find out how it actually happened, the fact that she was actually beheaded and my uncle hanged himself. Why did he have to take things into his own hands and end it in this way, in this bloody way? It just didn't make sense to a lot of us. I think there's so many families, so many marriages of that generation where the husband is the boss, the husband is the samurai, and he calls the shots. And when I look back at the type of marriage that they had, I remember that he was very, not mean, but somewhat derogatory to my auntie, saying, "Oh, don't talk to her. She cannot remember anything. She forgets everything." And my auntie was just so sweet, very self-deprecating, and always making excuses for herself. But I think when you have a relationship like that, where one person is controlling everything, I guess you get to the point where he feels that it's justified for him to control whether or not she should live or not, and that's just wrong. Japanese have a saying, "Ganbatte," and that's persevere and keep going. And I think if you think that somebody's reaching their breaking point, then you have to step in, you have to help them, and it can save lives. It's okay to seek help. You don't have to be a superwoman or a Wonder Woman. You don't have to just endure it by yourself and with your husband. You can seek outside help, and that would make life much more bearable.
I think because it doesn't allow you to be who you are. You can't blossom, you can't grow. You're like in a greenhouse with shades on, and there's not enough room to grow. You can't be yourself.
Mine is the mom story or the dad story. So if we can help other young women see that they're wonderful people.
I think it's important for people to realize that it doesn't just affect certain segments of society. It really pervades so many different types of society.
Having gone through this with my sister and shared this experience with other women and women that are quite prominent, they've very privately shared some of their experiences. There's a lot to lose. There's a great deal of stake about their place in our community and their place in the world, and it's very sad. The price that we pay is high by remaining silent.
Victims with access to economic resources, victims who live a certain lifestyle, have been in the background when we have been doing work in the community to bring safety and attention to the problem of domestic violence. The stories are no less frightening, no less life-threatening, no less terrorizing, no matter what economic class you are. The shame and the embarrassment and the fear define all victims' realities. As we explore this problem further and make our expertise available, we are so hoping that you will find us and find the voice within you to seek answers, seek safety, and seek alternatives to the way that you're currently suffering.